All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be talking about net neutrality and why I believe that repealing it, is a good idea. So I want to start off just kind of defining it. The current net neutrality laws that were recently repealed by the FCC were implemented by the FCC in 2015. Basically, these laws prevented internet service providers, which, if you don't know, they're also called ISPs. It prevented those ISPs from charging companies based on how much bandwidth they were using to get their service onto the internet. And it sounds kind of confusing. So, for example, Comcast, who is one of the largest ISPs, would not be allowed to charge Netflix more than another company to stream their site online, even if Netflix uses a tremendous amount of bandwidth compared to that other company. In short, if I were to define it just in a sentence, net neutrality ensures that every website must be charged the same, regardless of how much of the ISP's bandwidth they use up. I think that's a fair definition and an accurate one. So, I believe that these laws should have been repealed, and when they did get repealed, everyone lost their mind. Not just the left, but everyone just, their heads blew off because it's insane to lose net neutrality, apparently. But I'm going to talk about it. First of all, it was a completely unnecessary law that didn't change the way that the internet was supplied to consumers, as most would agree that they did not have to pay higher prices to use certain services such as Netflix or YouTube prior to these FCC regulations. It wasn't like we were struggling to pay for these things and all of a sudden the FCC came in and saved us with net neutrality. It wasn't an issue to begin with. Secondly, it hurts small ISPs, and it also hurts small businesses that are using the ISPs. That is, keeping net neutrality hurts both small ISPs and small businesses, and I'll talk about that. So, a common argument from people in support of net neutrality is that getting rid of it would hurt small businesses and small ISPs as well, and it would do so by limiting competition. So, let's dispute this claim by setting up a scenario. With net neutrality in place, Netflix, who's a huge corporation, and hypothetical Joe's Online Ski Shop, a small online business, they would each have to pay the internet service provider the same amount of money to put their websites up, despite the fact that Netflix is using a tremendous amount of bandwidth compared to Joe's Online Ski Shop. If the ISPs were able to charge websites based on how much bandwidth they took up, aka this would be possible when you get rid of net neutrality, Joe's Online Ski Shop would pay a lot less based on the fact that they are not using as much bandwidth compared to Netflix. This would help the small business, not hurt it. The other worry from supporters of net neutrality claim that this will help big ISPs such as Comcast and CenturyLink. They say that because these ISPs are going to be able to make more money by charging whatever they want, they will be able to monopolize regions. However, this claim it's completely untrue, and it just doesn't make sense from a logical or an economic standpoint. If a small ISP and a large ISP are forced to charge the same price to put services onto the internet, which net neutrality requires them to do so, then the small ISP will never be able to compete with the large ISP. The freedom for a company to control its own prices is what creates competition in a free market system, not what hurts it. So, we can talk about some other concerns that supporters of net neutrality have. Some claim that if net neutrality is repealed, a situation could be possible where a company like Hulu could pay Comcast to slow down a competitor's speed, such as Netflix. And this way, they would get loads of more business from customers because Hulu would be faster than Netflix because they're secretly paying off Comcast. However, this concern is completely rooted in a lack of knowledge of current laws put in place. The Sherman Antitrust Act ensures, quote, every person who shall monopolize or attempt to monopolize or combine or conspire with any other person or persons to monopolize any part of trade or commerce among the several states or with foreign nations shall be deemed guilty of a felony, end quote. More simply defined, two corporations cannot legally conspire amongst one another to create a monopoly in a certain industry. So now that I have said how net neutrality being in place hurts small ISPs by limiting competition, it hurts small businesses by making them pay the same as a huge company that uses more of the product of the ISP. We can talk about some more broad things now when it comes to net neutrality. The best analogy that I can give you, if you're watching this, is looking at the food industry. In America, a handful of large corporations control most of the food industry, such as Kellogg's, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Nestle, all these big food corporations. If you apply the logic of net neutrality to the food industry, do we need food neutrality because these large corporations are free to charge whatever they please? After all, food is a basic human right, just as internet is proposed to be. Do we need food neutrality to ensure that companies don't abuse the free market by charging unaffordable prices to their consumers? Of course not. That's the beauty of the free market and of the capitalist system. If a company were to charge people unreasonable prices for their services, they would go out of business due to other companies coming in and reasonably pricing similar items. As Ben Shapiro at the Daily Wire writes, quote, "The government has no business in deciding how limited resources are distributed. Internet service providers own their bandwidth infrastructure and therefore should be able to decide how people get it. If consumers don't like that, then they can use a different service provider." End quote. That is why net neutrality, it was good that it was repealed, in my opinion, to ensure that government intervention within business does not grow beyond necessary means, to ensure that we aren't harming small businesses, to ensure that we are not limiting competition within internet service providing opportunities, and for the simple fact that it's simply unnecessary, and it's just more power to the government that they don't need, right? The government doesn't need to control the prices when there are so many small ISPs. You can talk to any small internet service provider. Ajit Pai, who everyone seems to hate, I don't really have an opinion on him, but he went out and he talked to small internet service providers all over the country, and they all said the same thing. Like, yeah, there's no way to get ahead because we can't control our prices. If we could control our prices, we would offer a cheaper option than Comcast. And that would be something that would appeal to people going out and saying, okay, what internet plan is the cheapest where I can get, what I need without having to pay a ton for it. So that's in short my opinion on net neutrality. I know it's long overdue because this whole thing happened a while ago, but that's all I have to say about it. If you liked it, make sure to drop a like. If you disagree with anything I said, make sure to comment down below so we can have a nice discussion about it, and I will see you guys in another video.